Hi, this is Mr. N going over your Chapter 12A test, which is essentially factoring and solving, April 5th, 2017, version B. Question number 1, true or false? Looking at question number 3 below, it's asking, making a statement, has a greatest common factor or GCF. So if we look at number 3 here, you'll recognize that all of the numbers there are even. So if they are even, break them up into factors. You'll realize that they all have a 2 in common, and 2 is my GCF there. So yes, it does have a greatest common factor. Question number 2, factor completely, x squared plus 2x minus 15. A value is 1, b is 2, c is negative 15. A times c is negative 15, b value is 2. List out all the factors that are 15, 15 and 1, 5 and 3. I need 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 15, but also add to be positive 2. That would be 5 and negative 3. So if I take these 2 values here, you're going to put them here and here. Make sure you add an x. Your A value, color pink, always goes into the top left. And your C value, which goes in the bottom right there. And it's kind of like a multiplication tables. How can you get to multiply? So x times x times 5 gives you 5x. Put a negative 3 up here, negative 3 times x gives you negative 3x. Negative 3 times 5 gives you negative 15. Now, if you realize that the trick, after doing a lot of these in class, is that when your A value is equal to 1, you don't have to do the box. When your A value is greater than 1, you should be doing the box. Okay, if you don't understand that, you can just do both the x and the box all the time. So the correct answers, here's x plus 5 and x minus 3. Question number 3, factor the trinomial completely if the polynomial cannot be factored, write prime. So we recognize all the numbers are even, and we already took the greatest common factor up here. So I just wrote that down here. And then all you're doing when you're doing this problem is you're focusing on inside the parentheses. A value is 1, b is 13, c is 40. A times c is 40, b value is 13. If you wanted to write out all the factors of 40, there would be 40 and 1, 20 and 2, 10 and 4, 8 and 5, and I can't think of any others. And the reason why I write the bigger numbers on the left is if you ever have to subtract them. So I'm looking for ones that add up to be 13. So 8 and 5. Multiply to be 40, but add to be 13. Again, take those 2 numbers, put them in the bottom left and top right always. Take your A value, now pay attention, your A value here is inside the parentheses, because you already took out the GCF of 2. And then your C value goes right there. So you're going to put a y and y there, because y times y is y squared, y times 5 is 5y, 8 times y is 8y, and 8 times 5 is 40. So y plus 5, y plus 8, and don't forget the GCF that you had right there. Question number 4 says factor completely. X squared minus x equals 42. Now I did ask you guys to cross off those directions and write the word solve, because here you'll notice that all of your choices here don't have any binomials. Okay, so if I need to solve, I need to set it equal to 0. So here are some steps there. You can pause the video and make sure you have those on your maps. I'm going to set it equal to 0 by subtracting 42 from both sides. X squared minus x minus 42 equals 0. A value is 1, b value is negative 1, c value is negative 42. A times c is negative 42, b value is negative 1. 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 42, and 2 numbers that add to be negative 1 are negative 7 and 6. Now remember, the shortcut I told you above is if your A value is equal to 1, let's double check that. A value is equal to 1. You only need the x, you don't need the box. Okay? And essentially you can take these 2 numbers, those become your binomials, x plus 6 and x minus 7. Zero product rule says one of those expressions must equal 0, so just solve it, minus 6, and add 7, and these are your 2 answers, and that is choice D. Question number 5 says x squared plus 4. Notice how there's no b value, because if you wrote standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c, your b value is equal to 0, your a value is equal to 1, and your c value is equal to 4. Well, if your b value is equal to 0, you could get your a, b, and c. A times c is 4, and your b value is 0. Okay? Now, if you try to solve the x puzzle here, there are no two numbers that multiply to be 4, but they also add to be 0. Because in order to be 0, add to 0, so again, I need those two numbers to both multiply to be 4 and add to be 0. Well, if they have to add to 0, this is probably going to have to be like a positive 2 and a negative 2. Well, if that happens, a positive times a negative should equal negative, not a positive. So you can never think of two numbers that multiply to be 4 and add to be 0. Therefore, it's prime or can't factor. Number 6. Factor 3x squared plus 2x minus 8. A value is 3, b is 2, c is negative 8. Because your a value is greater than 1, you're going to have to do both the x and the box. A times c is negative 24. Your b value is positive 2. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 24 and add to be a positive 2 are negative 4 and 6. I'm going to take those two values, put them in here. I'm going to take my a value, which is 3x squared, and put it in the top left. And then I need a c value that goes in the bottom right always. And of course, you guys know that the hardest part of this one is where do I put the 3? Because I need x times 3x will give us 3x squared. Well, think about that. If I put the 3 over here, 3 times something can equal a 4, because 3 is not a factor of 4. So you put the 3 over here. 3 can go into 3x squared, and 3 can go into 6x. So 3x times x gives me 3x squared. X times negative 4 gives you negative 4x. And 3x times 2 gives me 6x, and 2 times negative 4 gives you negative 8. There were 6 multiple choice questions times 2 points, so that's 12. And 1 point for circling the period, and 1 point for writing your name, first and last name legibly, so that side's worth 15. Let's turn to the back side. Factor completely. A value is 1, b is negative 12, c is 36. 36, b value is negative 12. Two numbers that multiply to be 36 are negative 6 and 6. Get stuck on that, use your calculator. Probably stuck on the integers. And then these two numbers add to be negative 12. This one just says factor, so I have x minus 6. X minus 6. Remember, you don't need to do the box there of a value is equal to 1. And if you have identical expressions, you can do it to the power of 2. If you have both of these, one of these answers, you got full credit. If you went on to factor those, such as zero product rule, x minus 6 equals 0, and got x equals 6, you got 3 out of 4 points, because this problem tells you to factor. Question 8a, identify the a, b, and c. Well, this one, your a value, if you write out standard form, you notice that everything is on one side of the equation, which means that your a value is 1, your b value is negative 10, and if you move the c value, or the c value, this negative 16, the constant to the left side, you'll get a positive 16. Remember, in here you should not have any variables. A times c, b value is negative 10, two numbers which are negative 2 and negative 8. Don't need to do the box because your a value is equal to 1, but if you did it, you get the same answer. Do you see that? X minus 2, x minus 8. Because you are solving in that problem, if you left it just right here, you got 3 out of 4. Remember, you have to use zero product rule. One of these has to be equal to 0, so set it equal to 0 and solve. Add 2, add 8, x equals 2 and 8. Here are some quick reminders of, here in green, this is solving. And here in blue is everything you're using for factoring. I have 18x squared plus 27x. And if you write out the factors, 9, 2, x, and x, 27 are 9, 3, and x. Now, a lot of students try to write like 6 and 3 and 9 and 3. Then you realize you have both a 6 and a 3 in common. I guess 6 doesn't go into that. You can have a 3. But 3 is a common factor, not the greatest common factor. So if you just wrote a 3 there, I think I gave you only 2 out of 4 points. I'm pretty much using the same rubric as the previous problem. Yeah, you only got 2 points there. Here, you're 9, and they both have an x in common. So 9 and x, they both have a 9 and x, so this is your GCF. That means that your A value, 9x times the quantity 2x plus 3. Question number 10, I'm factoring completely, so here you'll notice it doesn't have the power of 2, so if you take out a GCF of x, there is your GCF, and then you just write what you have left there. So that would be 3x squared, 5x, and a 2. A value is 3. Your B value should actually be a negative 5. Now that's okay, because when I do A value, A times C is 6. B value, wrote that correctly there. 2 numbers that multiply be a positive 6 but add to be a negative 5, or negative 2 and negative 3. If you put that into your box right here, and then your A value inside the parentheses, that's the key there, always goes in the top left. And then your C value always goes in the bottom right there. And then remember, you're trying to find where does that 3 go. Well, 3 can't go up here because 3 doesn't go into 2. 3 goes into 3. So I'm going to have 3x times x, 3x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. And negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. So your factors are 3x minus 2 and x minus 1. Now don't forget the GCF that you had. If you just wrote this, you got 3 points out of 4. If you wrote negative 2 and negative 3 correct on your x, but you didn't do your box, you got 2 points. If you did this, if you got this correct and you found the greatest common factor, I gave you 3 points out of 4. Questions out of 4 points. And extra credit, fill in the blanks with one of the school's student learning capacities. I gave you C and C. That's communicators and collaborators. So you had, that side was 19 points. So 19 plus 15 gives you 34. I hope that made your math day.